Welcome back. One of the first people to confirm the Gupta family's alleged capture of the state is Themba Maseko, who used to lead the Government Communication Information System, the GCIS. He outlined the details of what had happened to him and how he lost his job to the Zondo Commission. South Africa went on to lose more. Billions more rands at state-owned entities were lost and brilliant careers were destroyed due to the grand-scale corruption allegedly engineered by the Gupta family and supported by some of the top politicians, including former President Jacob Zuma. We now have several commissions, including the one headed by the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, as well as the one headed by Robert Nugent. Former Minister Barbara Hogan and the Minister of Public Enterprises Pravin Gordhan will be appearing before the State Capture Commission, where they are expected to reveal more about the damage caused to South Africa, its government and economic well-being. It takes a lot of character and courage to speak up when the big people are complicit in undermining their oaths. And Themba Maseko is here with me to tell me more about his journey and his experiences that led to him losing the job and several years later appearing before the Zondo Commission. Dr. Maseko, a pleasure to catch up with you, sir.
It's my pleasure talking to you, Tim.
Sure, and it's been some time, but you know, we've been living with this for 8 years now. Is it 7 to 8 years? Because the first experience was in 2010. 2010,
and some have had experiences with it even prior to 2010. So this has been going on for almost a decade.
Yeah. But, you know, as I say in the intro, that you are one of the courageous people. It takes a lot of character to reveal information where a person of the president's stature could be implicated in wrongdoing. And you did it anyway. But what is it that motivated you to sort of reveal this, to make us aware that there was something going on in South Africa that was not right?
Well, Tim, a lot of us have a history in fighting against apartheid, and we were idealistic in a sense because we had told ourselves that when we defeat apartheid, we'll have a people's government, a democratically elected people's government that's going to be driven by serving the needs of the people ahead of everything else. So the experiences that we started seeing in government generally, but with regard to state capture in particular, was the extent to which some individuals in the party and in government, and I think it's important to just emphasize the point.
When you say in the party, you mean the ANC, right?
A lot of the people that are implicated are ANC members.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's important to be clear that not everybody in government was involved in state capture, not everybody in the party, but key people in party structures in the ANC actually found themselves assisting a particular family to actually loot state resources. And
but those who counter that argument have been saying that you cannot surely blame 3-4 people for state capture, that it has to be expanded. It means something much more. It's a much more substantial thing. It is not just 3-4 people who went about their business of undermining the business the government in the way that they did.
Tim, that's the importance of the Zondo Commission, because it's going to tell us how this project actually worked. Because there are clearly, and some academics have done research on this subject, there are people who were like the kingpins who are driving everything behind the scenes. There are also people who were runners, who were just runners, who were making sure that deals were acquired and implemented on behalf of the Gupta family. And there were people who were standing on the bylines who were just receiving cash for doing absolutely nothing. So the Zondo Commission is going to tell us who were the key players. And you are correct. It's not just a few individuals. But a few individuals could have been driving it. But then it started reaching out to state-owned enterprises, to provincial governments, and there were even attempts to get involved in local government structures as well. So the tentacles were starting to spread.
Right. You did this in your own right as an individual. And did you feel at the time that something was amiss here, that unsettled you?
Well,
tell me the story from the first time you made contact with the Gupta. Did you get a sense that, hey, hold on a second, this is unusual, man. I mean, I'm used to talking to people, politicians, but what is happening here is way out of line than the norm.
Well, in my role in government, I saw them getting involved in activities of government. I was responsible for the International Marketing Council, and Ajay Gupta was actually a board member. So I used to see him there in meetings and also getting involved in coordinating government trips and all those kinds of things. But I never thought too much about it. It's when they started demanding to have meetings with me, to say, okay, let's meet. Initially, it wasn't a request, it was a demand. Initially, I resisted, but I decided to, no, let me just go and give them a hearing. And when the call came, and as I was driving to the meeting with them, then a call from the president also comes to say that these Gupta brothers, they need your help, please help them. And that's when I started traveling to, to the Saxonwold place. But at that stage, I thought they were, targeting GCIS and maybe targeting me because we were seen as what I call low-hanging fruit. I never thought too much about it. But it's when I started reading other things that were happening in government, the landing of the private jet in Waterkloof military base, then the announcement that they had offered Mcebisi Jonas, or Deputy Minister Mcebisi Jonas, a position of Minister of Finance, in addition to a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
That's when I started realizing that actually this is something bigger than just them wanting money from GCIS.
But let me take you back to your own experience.
Yes.
When the demands were being placed on you to meet with them, and in one of the reports you suggest that they were even very rude to you and said that they would deal with you. It didn't take long before you lost your job. And interestingly, you were dismissed from your position. We can laugh now, but it must have been very painful at the time, via TV. You were working, you were not aware that ETV was announcing that you actually no longer work for the government. Just tell me a bit more about that.
Okay, let me just try and be brief, but also give the facts. A call comes in to say, on a Friday evening, we want to have a meeting with you on Monday morning to discuss the launch of a newspaper. And I say, okay, listen, call me on Monday, we can talk. It's Friday, it's late, and we can call on Monday to have a meeting. They insisted that the meeting must happen on Monday morning, and that was none of the key Gupta brothers. It was one of their operators. And then when I said, I'm not going to meet you on Monday, call me on Monday, we'll set up a meeting. That call was followed up by a very aggressive and arrogant call from Ajay Gupta himself, who said, listen, my people are telling me that you are being difficult, but the meeting is not going to happen on the Monday. Now the meeting must happen the following day, which will happen to be a Saturday. I say, Ajay, I find your behavior totally unacceptable. You can't call me and give me an instruction to meet you on a particular day. And then he said, if you don't want to meet on Saturday, or in his words, I can see that you're not cooperating, I'll get people who are senior to you to sort you out and deal with you and make sure that they replace you with somebody who's going to cooperate with us. And that's when I think the conversation took a turn, and we ended up saying things that shouldn't be said in public. Subsequent to that conversation, I think it was literally a couple of weeks later, I then get a call from my minister, was Minister Chabane then, who said...
This is happening in 2010.
This is 2010. The calls, the fights, and all of that happens in 2010.
Late 2010.
Late 2010, And that's when they were planning to launch the New Age newspaper, which was supposed to be followed by the TV channel. 2010 comes to an end. Come January, I get a call from Minister Chabane who says, can we meet? We meet. And then he says he's been instructed by the president to get rid of me, to make sure that I don't work in GCIS anymore. And the meeting happened on a Monday, and I said, okay, listen, let's talk about it. He said, no, he knows that I had not done anything wrong. I've done my job. He's going to find me an alternative job in government. So I said, fine. And as we were waiting for that, 3 days or 2 days later, at a cabinet meeting, my office calls me to say, listen, E-News, your predecessor of ENCA, was already running a clip that said, I've been fired. So I got out of the meeting, spoke to my minister. The minister checked around and checked with the president, and the president, who happens to be President Zuma at the time, confirm that, yes, I'm no longer in that position, and that Minister Chabane must announce at the meeting that I'd been replaced from GCIS, and the person who was going to take over from me was a Jimmy Manye, and that announcement was made in the cabinet meeting there. And the funny part is that I also had to go and announce it to the public to say that I'm no longer at GCIS, I've been replaced by...
So what
Jimmy
were you meant to
Manye.
say? To say I have decided to step down, or
No,
is it a case of I've just been dismissed?
In his wisdom, Minister Chabane was smart. He said, no, simply say you've been transferred from GCIS to DPSA, and that's how the announcement was made. The funny part, the other funny part, is that the Minister of DPSA was not at the cabinet meeting.
And was not aware that
was not aware of this
getting a new
decision.
DG.
I had to call him and say, Minister Baloyi, I'm your new DG. And he said, no, there's nothing like that. I said, no, the cabinet has made that announcement. So that's how it actually panned out. So that's how actually my job came to an end.
Always drama, right?
Yes.
I mean, you sit in those cabinet meetings, you speak on behalf of cabinet, but you were not aware you're going to lose your job.
Yeah.
And even your direct Minister Collins Chabane was not aware.
Was not aware,
Yeah.
and I must say, to be fair and honest to the cabinet meeting, in its 99.9% of it, they were extremely shocked because they knew that I was doing a good job. I was representing their views fairly okay, so they were happy.
Yeah.
So this sudden announcement that happened the way it did was a shocker to them.
But then, so this happens, you move to another department, you go and find a way of fitting in and building a new relationship.
I think my first meeting with the Minister, DPSA, Minister Baloyi, was not the easy one because he made it very clear to me that, listen, he had not made the appointment. I've been imposed on him as DG. So we're going to have to try and make it work. But unfortunately, after a few months, it did not work. And
well, I suppose also the fact that he was not informed
he was
going to be given a DG.
The turn of events was clearly unfortunate because ideally a minister should be consulted. If there's a DG coming your way, you should be consulted. It just so happens that he was not at the meeting and his DG post was vacant. And I think that happened largely because of Minister Chabane's commitment to me to say, because I had not done anything wrong, he was not going to let me end up in the street. So he made a plan. Unfortunately, he did not have time to call his colleague to say, hey, I've arranged a DG for you, please.
Yeah, boy, it was hectic. It was a very interesting day in cabinet
period,
on the day.
Yeah.
I'm talking to Themba Maseko, the former chief of the GCIS, on his experience and how he was dismissed from his position for pushing the Guptas off. But he's going to tell us more about what he thinks has been going on with state capture, as well as cast our eyes ahead to next week, where the former Minister Barbara Hogan is going to be appearing before the Zondo Commission. Don't go away.